My wife asked for my permission to cheat on me, so I made sure she regretted everything. Hello, Reddit. I'm here with my experience today. I don't even know where to start from because I want you all to understand what really happened. Have you ever been asked a question that just made you very angry? There are some questions that are not supposed to be asked at all. Have you ever been betrayed and deceived in a very despicable way? My wife had the audacity to ask me a very stupid question. I don't know where she got the courage from, but she did. My wife asked me for permission to cheat on me. Permission to cheat. I never knew that was a thing until my wife thought it was okay to ask me that. That woman betrayed me and made me regret all my life choices. I could not just let such a wicked woman go scot-free. So I made sure I got my revenge. I made her regret everything she did to me, and I smiled while doing it. You know that feeling of sweet revenge? That feeling is priceless. My wife got a taste of her own bitter medicine. Before I tell you all what really happened, I think it's best I tell you guys how I met my wife and how we got married. This will be a long ride, but I plead with you all to bear with me. My wife, F28, and I, M29, are high school sweethearts. Yes, I met my wife when I was in high school. I don't remember how old I was before I noticed her, but I know we have known each other for a very long time. I was one of the popular kids, and she was one of the reserved ones. I had a crush on her, but it was not a big deal. I had a crush on 3 other girls, too. Teenage boys have the tendency to be confused, and I was not an exception. I was not the type of boy who was shy to talk to girls, but when it came to my wife, I could not speak to her. We never even spoke in class. She was a bookworm. You know those types of girls that like to keep their head in their books till the bell rings? That was how my wife behaved in school. The first time we spoke to each other was when we were paired in a class project together. I remember how upset she was when they paired her up with me. She felt like I was not a serious person and that I was going to end up leaving all the work for her. She did not say this to me. She said it to her friend, and I got to know about it. I was not smart or dull. If I wanted to, I could get average grades by reading, but I was not one to spend my time reading books for too long. Like most teenage boys, I believed I was going to get a scholarship by playing basketball. I really believed I was going to be a basketballer. I realized that my wife was confident I was going to mess up the project, so I became involved in the project just to impress her. We started talking from that period, and that was it. We became friends, and that was all. I dated other people, and she dated other people too. Yes, we were just high school students then, but we still dated. It's not something out of the ordinary. In our final year in high school, I got scared of us separating when we went to college, so I told her I liked her. She was surprised at first and did not give me a quick reply, but after some days, she came around. That was how we started dating, guys. It was that simple. I got into a college in town, and she got into college and moved out of town. We still dated long distance, even though it was very difficult. After 2 years of long distance dating, we called it quits. I moved on, and so did my wife. I didn't really expect to see her again, so I got back to my playboy lifestyle. I did not end up getting a sports scholarship, so I studied philosophy in college. I know. How did I end up studying such a boring course? Well, even I don't have the answers. When I was done with college, it was hard to find a job. It did not help that I studied philosophy in college. I had to start doing side jobs till I got a job as a religious studies teacher in a high school. I still kept my side jobs because I was not satisfied with what I earned. Like I told you guys earlier, I never expected to see my wife again. So, when one of my old friends told me she was back in town, I was very excited. I wasted no time in meeting with her and catching up. She had a boyfriend by then, so it really broke my heart. Luckily for me, they broke up some months later. We started dating again after that. She told me she was just in town for a year and would be moving to Canada to go job hunting. I was worried about that because I knew there was a slimmer chance of us meeting up again. I tried my best to talk her out of it, but she had made up her mind. I was already in love with her back then, so I found it impossible to be away from her again. I was so desperate that I decided to follow her to Canada. Yes, I'm serious. I know that you all might be thinking that I am a fool. To be honest, even my own parents called me a fool after I told them what I planned to do. My friends thought I had gone crazy. I mean, who follows a girl he's dating to another country? But I was determined not to let her go again. I convinced my family that I could also find a job there and settle down. That's how I ended up in Canada with my wife. The first few weeks were very hard for me because I had no idea what I was doing. She already knew where to apply for jobs and who to meet. If she didn't, she would not have thought of going to Canada. I was the one who struggled to adapt because I came with no plans. I had money on me. I saved a lot from the job I had before Canada, so I was not broke. I just found it hard to get a job and adjust to the new environment. My wife and I lived together in a rented apartment. My wife got a job first, and after 3 months of searching, I got a job. We dated for 1 more year, and then I proposed. She accepted, and we had a small wedding. When I say our wedding was small, trust me, it was. We just had 2 or 3 friends there and the priest. It was nothing fancy because we wanted to save money. After getting married, we lived a simple life. We still had to save a lot, so there were no fancy dinners and date nights. It was mostly work, work, and work. We were in a foreign country, so we had to work hard to settle down and have a comfortable life. I worked harder because I needed to prove to my parents that I did not make a mistake by moving to Canada. 1 year later, my wife and I were able to get comfortable in Canada. We finally started going on dates and just casually spending time together. I loved my wife very much, and that did not get lost in our marriage. I never wasted time in showing her how much I loved her. I would cook for her, buy her flowers, and just do some romantic things. I'm not ashamed to tell you guys how much of a romantic lover I am. If I like someone, I'll want to make you feel like the only one in the world, lol. There's no need to hide it, especially when you're my wife. I wanted us to start trying to have kids, but my wife said she was not ready. I did not have a problem with it because it is her body and she had every right to decide when she wants a baby. My wife and I were living fine and just exploring life till it all began to slowly change. I'm a patient man who loves to give people the benefit of doubt. It's not like I'm gullible or stupid, I just have the tendency to put myself into other people's shoes. My wife started acting weird all of a sudden. I don't even think it's right for me to say it was sudden. There were signs before, but I was the one who ignored it. You know that feeling of annoyance that you just can't help but suppress? That's how I had to deal with my wife's mood swings. She got moody often and would snap at me for no reason at all. Listen, I left my hometown and moved to Canada for this girl. If I did that, it means I loved her. That's just me telling you how much I cared for her. So, when she started making side remarks and denying me sex at night, I just waved it off. Of course I waved it off. I cared for her a lot, and I was not going to let something so small make us argue. My wife took my patience as stupidity, and then she began to annoy me almost every day. I got back from work at 6 p.m. and left for work at 8 a.m. in the morning. I had no time for extra activities, but I always made time for my wife. But she decided to guilt trip me. I mean, how can I come back home at 6 p.m.? And my wife, who has been home since 4 p.m., did not make me anything to eat. If she is tired, I get it. I can understand that she wanted to rest after work, but does it make any sense that she would wait for me to come cook? She would tell me, "I'm really hungry right now. I need something to eat. Please make something for dinner." I was surprised because it made no sense. Anytime I asked her what she had been doing at all for all those hours, she'd say, "I'm tired. I had to rest." What about me? I just got back from work, so I deserve to rest too. I did not complain at first and made her dinner every evening, but after some time, I got upset and stopped. I would tell her to give me some hours to rest before I made dinner, and she would get into a screaming match with me. My wife would accuse me of being wicked and heartless because I did not cook her dinner. Yes, you read that right. I was being abused for not cooking dinner immediately after I got back from work. Some days I'd let her scream till she was tired, but I got tired of it and started giving her replies. I realized that all she ever wanted was to get me riled up, because anytime I got into it with her, she'd be so full of energy. She liked the disputes we were having. I thought I was overreacting and seeing things, but it was the truth. My wife was intentionally getting on my nerves. You know that saying, love can make you do stupid things? Trust me, it's true. I know this because I have done stupid things just to make my marriage smooth. I would apologize for not cooking dinner early and would start making it anytime she wanted. I did all the chores in the house and even cooked breakfast before work. I'm stupid, yes, I know. I did all these things because I loved that woman. I loved her so much I was ready to turn a blind eye to all the annoying things she did. But that did not seem to be enough for my wife. She had a mission, and that was to make my life a living hell. Imagine me, a man in a country he was still getting to know, being told that he was not trying enough. My wife complained that I did not take her out on dates often. I know you all might be wondering how I endured all these emotional abuse and gaslighting. Well, I did not endure it because I was so patient. I endured it because my marriage had to work. Do you think it's easy to drop your life and move to another country? Do you think my family did not promise me I'll regret my decision? Before I married her, I told myself we had to work. There was no going back because I had given everything to be with her. I did all that because I believed we would be together forever. Stay with me, guys. The good part has not even begun. One day, I had enough and was so upset I called my wife and told her I did not like the way she had been behaving. It took a lot of confidence to do that, trust me. I'm never good with confrontation, so I like to run away from it, but that day, I had enough. I did not know how I went from being the confident high school bad boy to a guy that was suppressing his feelings. I promise you all that it was not easy, but I did it. My wife surprisingly apologized and told me her actions were because she had a new boss at work who was giving her a hard time. She told me how hard her life at work had been, and that was what made her get so cranky and irritated. I asked her why she did not bother telling me, and she told me she did not want to disturb me and knew I was also busy with work. Busy indeed. If she knew I was so busy, why did she make me cook dinner and breakfast every day? I accepted her apology because I did not want to have problems with her. I had a lot to prove and fight for, and that was my only mistake. Let me say this, guys. Sometimes, giving your all to a relationship will only make you lose it all. Don't invest so much that you get scared of losing it all. That will only make you lose yourself. Life went back to normal, and my wife was back to being the kind and loving woman I knew. I still cooked and did all the chores, but I did not have a problem with it because my wife did not throw fits anymore. Everything was good till one day my wife told me she was going to spend the night out. I was shocked, and I did not like the idea of her doing that. I mean, she never slept outside before, so what was making her do that? First of all, guys, I had many questions running through my head that day. We had stayed 2 years in Canada, but we were still very much trying to get used to the country. I was worried about her safety, and I was also guarded. I did not want my wife sleeping outside the house. It did not make sense. She brushed all my concerns away and told me she was having a sleepover at her female colleague's house. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought sleepovers were for teenagers. Let's assume I'm wrong. But why would women who had worked the next day want to have a sleepover night? I tried talking my wife out of it, but she ignored me and left the house that day. My ego was bruised. I'm not even going to lie. I was jealous and angry. I was jealous because my wife preferred spending the night at her colleague's place to staying home with me. I was angry because my wife ignored me and left the house. Reddit, I know you all have different opinions about different topics, and I know some of you might end up calling me a controlling husband. But let's be fair here. If I, as a man and husband, told my wife I was not going to be home for the night because I was going to have a guy's night with my colleagues, would that be right? Would my wife not get angry that I was not going to be home? Of course, she'd get suspicious. So why should I not have a right to feel the same way? It did not help that when I called her that night, she was so comfortable rejecting all my calls and switching off her phone. This is a woman I love. I don't care what anyone says, but ghosting your partner is very psychotic. You only do it because you know what kind of effect it has on them. You cannot claim to love someone, then you switch off your phone just so they can't reach you. The only regret I had was that I was seeing all these red flags only after we got married. If I had seen all these red flags before Canada, I would not have married her at all. I spent that night very upset with no way to reach my wife. Maybe I overreacted, which I'm sure I didn't. Was my wife right for ghosting me like that? The next day, when she got back, I tried having that conversation with her, but she told me she was tired and needed to go to sleep and go to work. What was she doing all night? Wasn't it a sleepover? Did it not require sleeping? My wife did not go to work that day. She stayed home and slept for hours. I asked her why she did not go to work, and she said she already took permission. None of it made sense to me because I did not see her calling anyone. Why did she have to tell me she had to go to work in the morning? At this point, I was already certain my wife was taking me for granted. Reddit, I don't think you are ready for what my wife decided to do 1 week later. For me, it had to be the biggest form of disrespect ever. My wife told me we needed to talk. I got back from work early and made dinner early so we could talk over dinner. Everything was going fine, and we were having a normal conversation until she suddenly said something that threw me off balance. She said, "I have noticed that we've been arguing a lot recently." I still remember those exact words because I was very interested in where the conversation was going. I said something along the lines of, "Yes, we've been having problems." My wife, who had been the cause of all our problems, told me I was the one at fault. She broke into tears and told me I was ruining our marriage. Yes, you read that right. She really sat there and cried her eyes out. I was so shocked I couldn't even afford to move. I did not believe she was serious. I waited patiently for her to laugh and tell me she was joking, but it never came. My wife made me feel like I was the problem in the marriage. She continued ranting and accusing me of several things. I did not say a word because I could not trust what came out of my mouth at that point. I just sat there and regretted every sacrifice I made to be with her. I knew that none of those sacrifices were worth it. I ended up moving all the way to Canada for a woman that lied through her teeth and tried to make me guilty for things I didn't even do. I was angry, and I had every right to be angry. I stood up and left the dining table. She tried following me, but I tried my best to stop her. She went as far as standing in front of me to stop me from moving. My wife said she was not done yet, and that she still had a lot to tell me. It took all the patience in me to wait and let her finish. She said she loved me so much and did not want to lose me. You know when a narcissist wants to make everything about themselves? That's exactly what my wife displayed. She spoke like our relationship revolved around her and I was just a passerby. Like I'm not also in the relationship. She said all she wanted was for us to get back to what our marriage was like before. To be honest, even now as I'm writing this, I still can't believe what happened that night was real. I read a lot about psychotic relationships, but I never imagined myself getting into one. This was a woman I loved. She said she asked some of her friends for help, and they suggested an open relationship. Yes, I'm serious. My wife told me that she wanted us to have an open relationship. I told her I didn't want an open relationship and that she was overreacting. We did not need to get into an open relationship to fix our issues. She shook her head and said, if I was fine and was not interested in an open relationship, she did not feel the same way. I asked her what she meant, and she told me she wanted to date other partners and wanted to explore. I felt like I was hearing something else, so I asked her again, and she repeated the same thing. I asked her if she understood what she was saying. I even explained to her that an open relationship could not happen if both the partners did not agree to it. I made her understand that if it was only one partner that was interested in it, it was cheating, not an open relationship. My wife shrugged. Yes, she shrugged, and told me I could call it anything, but she wanted to date other partners, and thought it was best to ask for my permission first. She said she did not want me to find out another way. It took me a lot of time standing there and staring at her to realize that my wife, who is legally married to me, asked for permission to cheat on me. At that point, everything seemed to make sense. My wife had been lying unnecessarily and gaslighting me, just so I would react, and then we would argue and have issues. She planned it all. She wanted to cheat, so she made us argue and have problems. She needed a reason to cheat. She wanted to justify her actions and make it seem like I am the problem. I could not even believe that the woman I loved so much was the same person that asked me that question that night. I thought somebody else was standing in front of me. I knew what she wanted and why she did everything to get it. That was the moment I promised myself to pay her back. I swore to make her regret everything she did to me. I swore to show her what real problems looked like. All the love I had for her seemed to get me irritated. I did not suddenly stop loving her. I mean, we all know it does not work like that. But I definitely felt resentment towards her. The next day, I walked up to her and told her we could have an open relationship. She was really excited and even asked me if I was sure about it. I told her I was sure, then left the house and went to work. When I told you all I swore to make her regret it, I meant every word of it. I was angry. I'm still angry. The audacity and courage she had to ask her husband such a question was what told me I had made a fool of myself. Fuck love. I promised myself to see to it that she regretted everything. I never wanted to cheat before, but since she wanted us to have an open relationship, I did just that. I brought another woman home. Yes, I brought another woman into our apartment and also slept with her on our bed. Yes, I slept with her on the bed I shared with my wife. I made sure we stayed there until my wife got back from work and found us there. I saw the anger in her eyes, but I did not care. She wanted an open relationship and I was going to give it to her. I knew she was seeing someone too, but I did not care. As far as I was concerned, my marriage was over. I was done trying to save a marriage that had no respect for me. She told me how disrespectful that was and that I took things too far, but I brushed it off and told her I got too carried away. I stopped doing the dishes and other chores in the house. I also stopped cooking for her. My wife got angry when she noticed everything, but she did not have the courage to speak on it. I noticed her irritation in the way she hissed and cured unprovoked. I stopped coming home early. I would go to sleep at my colleague's house or go partying. I was living recklessly at that point. If you think that was the only revenge I could think of, you're wrong. I carefully planned out things to make my wife's life miserable. One day, I got home and my wife was already there. She said we needed to have a serious conversation about how I'd been behaving recently. She told me I needed to stop sleeping out and bringing different women home. She also asked why I stopped doing the chores around the house. I remember getting so angry that day, I swear I almost hit the heat. But I didn't. I was raised better than that, and it was not worth it. I told her she had no right to tell me what to do because, honestly, she didn't. That night, she cried herself to sleep. To be honest, that made me quite guilty. I was so guilty I actually started regretting everything I did to her. I decided to stop behaving that way and forgive my wife because I loved her so much. The next day, I woke up really positive and in the mood to help my marriage. My wife was not home when I woke up. I was surprised because I usually left for work before her. I brushed off the feeling I had and decided to clean up the house since it had been a mess since I stopped cleaning it. While I was busy cleaning the house, I found a phone under the couch. It looked like a new phone, and that caught my attention. I knew what my wife's phone looked like, and the phone I saw was definitely not hers. I tried unlocking the phone, but none of the passwords I tried worked at all. The fact that there was a new phone with a different password made me suspicious. I took the phone and hid it in my closet. That night, when my wife got back, I had already made dinner. She ate and went to bed immediately. I was so curious about the phone that I took it out from my closet and tried unlocking it again. The phone had a fingerprint lock, so I decided to use my wife's fingerprint while she was still sleeping. To be honest, I felt like it was a bad idea. I did not want to think about what would happen if she woke up and caught me trying to unlock her secret phone. I'd look like a fool. That didn't stop me from trying, though. I carefully used her fingers and it actually worked. She stirred in her sleep a little, but she did not wake up. Once I unlocked the phone, I practically locked myself in the toilet and searched through it. There were no pictures or phone calls, but there were messages. My wife's messages with a man whose name was saved as H. Yes, just H. The messages I read on that phone broke my heart. My wife was sex texting with another man. I know what you might be thinking. We agreed on an open relationship. But it was many months ago. Some of the messages even contained both of them setting up a time and date to meet up. This was way before she asked for permission to cheat on me. She just asked for permission so she could cover up her guilt. That's if she even had any. She wanted to have something as justification when I finally caught them. That's why she had been behaving weirdly for all those months. At that point, I did not have anything to feel guilty for. I was ready to do whatever I could to make her tear up very badly. The guilt I felt disappeared instantly. There was no need to feel guilty for a woman as despicable as her. My wife and I paid the rent equally because we earned almost the same amount of money. I took up extra responsibilities like buying groceries, water, paying for the electricity bill, and paying for Wi-Fi. We normally saved up for our rent for months, then paid it for the whole year. I knew my marriage was over and I despised the woman I called my wife, so I made sure I left no stone unturned. My wife had no idea I found out about her secret lover because I returned the phone back to where I found it. I pretended like nothing happened and went back to living life as I normally did. I no longer brought women into our home, and I continued doing the chores. My wife didn't suspect a thing because I did not give her a reason to. 3 months went by and I started saving all my salary. When I say all, I mean all. I did not put money aside for rent and saved as much as I could. I stopped buying the groceries, but my wife did not care because she hardly slept at home at night. A few months later, our rent was almost due. We still had 2 months before we had to pay, but I told my wife it was already time. She did not suspect anything because I usually paid the rent. She had no business with it. She gave me her money to pay the rent, and I took it. Of course, I did not pay the stupid rent. I kept that money in my back account. By that time, I was already planning how to get back home. When I say home, I mean the town I left, just to follow my wife to Canada. I no longer had any business with Canada because the reason I came there in the first place betrayed me. I was not interested in living an empty life in a foreign country when I could just easily go back to my home country and start my life afresh. 1 month later, I got everything I needed and had more than enough money to start my life afresh back home. The rent still had 2 more weeks till it was due, and I started getting calls from the caretaker. I assured him that I was going to pay and that we just had a delay in getting our salary. They sent me a message telling me we would have to vacate the house if we did not pay till our due date. I kept assuring them that it would not come to that. Exactly 1 day till the rent was due, I packed my belongings and left for the airport. That same day, I sold off almost all the appliances in the house. I had put them up for sale on my Amazon account for weeks and finally got buyers for them. I sold everything down to the couch. I did not go to work that day because I already sent in my resignation letter weeks before then. The only things left in the house were the things that were owned by the apartment and all the stuff that was too heavy to carry. I left Canada that day without my wife's knowledge. I blocked her phone number and switched off my phone. I knew that she was going to be sent packing tomorrow and she had no idea. All the rent money was with me. I left her with nothing. Absolutely nothing. Even if she had money on her or got a super rich boyfriend, which I strongly doubt, it will take her some time to recover from the shock. I did not leave a note or a letter. That's what she got for cheating on me, asking for permission to cheat and gaslighting me for years. I fell in love with her, my high school sweetheart. I loved her so much, I left my whole life and moved to another country with her. I was ready to forgive her after everything, but she had been deceiving me for months. It's been 2 months since I left her stranded in Canada, and I cannot say that life has been easy. My whole family spent hours telling me how I wasted years of my life on an ungrateful woman. My friends back home were very disappointed. Life was hard, but I tried my best to get back on my feet. The rent money helped, LOL. I crashed at my parents' house for a while before I got a job. I'm still married to my wife, but I don't plan on seeing her ever again. I will give her the punishment of staying married to me till she decides to leave Canada and serve me the divorce papers. I know she won't come back, and that's why I left. I don't plan on getting married for many years to come. If I change my mind one day, I will get married after finding my wife and divorcing her. Her punishment is that even if she wants to get married to her lover, they will never be truly married till she divorces me. In a way, she's tied to me forever. I don't know how to survive this because I practically built my life with her. Every day is a pain, but I know I'll get through it. Thank you all for your patience in reading this awful experience of mine. I know it was a very long story. Writing this brought back all the pain I felt. I know that there are people out there who can relate to this type of betrayal. I am lucky I was able to have my own revenge. I do not regret any of what I did to her. The only thing I regret is leaving everything for a woman I thought loved me. I'm sorry, Reddit, but I will not be able to make an update to this post. I don't plan on reliving this experience again. Whether or not I meet my wife and get a divorce, Reddit will not know because I don't know which day that will be. Thank you all, and goodbye, Reddit.
My fiancé decided to have fun before our wedding. My love life was good and full of happiness until it wasn't. I don't know if I was the one with a problem or love couldn't handle my happiness anymore. Have you ever felt like you were suffocating from what you are experiencing? If there is anyone who was once in my shoes, how did you deal with the ordeal? Did you leave everything as is, or you took a decision that you thought was only best for you? I am 28, grew up without parents. They died in a very tragic accident years ago. I was 14 when I was told about their tragic accident. So I was left with my big sister, who is 5 years older than me. who then took a role of being my parent at the age of 19. I was grateful for the funds my parents had left for us to further our studies and to be able to live till we could stand for ourselves. The funds that they had left for my education were enough to push me till I graduated in university. A couple of years later, my sister and I were on a vacation in Cape Town, South Africa, where I met my ex-fiancé, F25. I saw her in one of the restaurants. She was with her friend having lunch. My eyes couldn't stop looking at her when my sister noticed the way I was looking at this perfect, caramel and natural lady. She laughed at me and told me to approach her. I didn't want to look forward and get rejected, so I stayed back till they decided to leave. My sister forced me to go to her. My knees were shaking, and I didn't know how she was going to see me. I spotted them waiting for a ride. I took some breathing exercises before I went to where they were standing. I greeted and introduced myself, and I asked for her numbers. She blankly refused with them. Her friend gave me her Instagram account handle and told me to check her there. Her IG account was private, so I sent her a request to follow her, which took the whole week to get accepted. During my school days, I was a nerd and focused more on my books. I didn't have time for girls, but I had a childhood girlfriend, whom I started dating at the age of 13. We started chatting after a while, getting to know each other. I asked her out on a date, but she rejected me and told me that she didn't trust strangers. I understood her fears because there was a lot of human trafficking happening all around the world. It was not easy to just trust a person, especially from another country. My sister and I went back to the States, but I kept communicating with her. We became friends. She was then comfortable enough to tell me anything. A couple of months went by. I was working for this big architectural firm in New York as a building planner and designer. I got a client that needed a building planner for his upcoming mall building project. It was a South African real estate and construction company. It was my first big project to get in Africa. Getting the project didn't only gain me connections, but I also got a chance to meet with the lady who caught my eyes again, as her friend, of course. She gave me a hard time when I asked her to be my girlfriend, but at least she agreed to go on a date with me. That was progress, right? She gave me a chance after 3 dates and came up with a 90 days rule before taking the next step. I respected her decision because it gave us time to get to know each other more. We dated through socials and calls for a couple of months. It was a bit hard because we were on different continents. We tried by all means to communicate with each other every day. The following year, she got a filming scholarship from New York Film Academy. Things got a bit better for us, and I got a chance to see her every day. After the 90 days rule was over, we took our relationship to the next level. I loved her so much. We shared our future goals and everything. She was a person who liked building communication and connections. She was fun, spoke her mind, but down to earth and intelligent too. I asked her to move in with me 3 months after she had moved to the States. I proposed to her not so long after she had moved in. I was happy. I had everything I wanted and needed. What more would I have asked for? My lady was always natural and original in everything. No makeup, no wigs or fake whatever that those influencers do. She told me to loosen up and enjoy life, telling me that you only live once. Enjoy life while you still can because you don't know what tomorrow holds. So let's enjoy ourselves while we still can. We then started going out a lot, exploring nightclubs in our free time. Time passed. She started going out alone a lot, saying she was going to study or she was going to do a project, she won't be coming back, and she would crash at a friend's house. I trusted her. Her dedication to her schoolwork was amazing. Her everyday phrase was, "I don't want you to marry someone who is not educated and broke. I want to be a rich, career-driven wife and build our family's legacy together." She was full of enthusiasm and determination. To cut the story short, my sister organized an engagement party for us. They used to call me a nerd at school. My sister was the only friend I had. Till I got Jess, she changed everything. The party was intimate with only few of my colleagues, my fiancé's friends and family members. Things started changing after our engagement party. I noticed her behavior before our premarital party. She was always on her phone, chatting with whoever she was chatting with. That made me suspect that she was cheating because she had become distant. When I raised my concerns, she would brush me off and tell me that I was overthinking. I trusted her and I was certain that she wouldn't do anything that would jeopardize our relationship. Or would she? So one day we decided to stay indoors spending some quality time together. We had already started with wedding preparations. We were going through our gallery from the time we started dating. We still had to prepare for our premarital party later on. Jessica went to fetch some more snacks for us when her phone rang and a name Peter popped up. I told her that she had a call. She rushed in to drop it, but I had already answered and put it on loudspeaker. The guy greeted and asked if she was ready to have some fun before she got off the market. She just dropped the call without answering the guy. The guy even called her beautiful. That made me suspicious of who this Peter guy was who called my woman beautiful and asked if she was ready to have fun before she got off the market. The day was ruined. I got curious and wanted to know more about this kind of fun the guy was talking about. I couldn't question her, my thoughts were racing. You know, curiosity killed a cat. So I asked Jessica who this Peter guy was and what their relationship was. She told me that Peter was a friend whom she met in college and he was her project partner. I saw it through her that there was more than just being friends from college and project partners. So I planned to bug her phone. I downloaded a tracking app that would track her phone's location, but I had to first try and get her phone and search for any conversations. I couldn't get to the conclusion of being cheated on, so I had to check their text conversations. I wanted to know who this guy was and what was really going on between them. I couldn't let insecurities ruin my plan and our premarital ceremony. So when Jessica was in the bathroom, I got a chance to take her phone and search for any tangible evidence that I would use to confront her. I found nothing, which meant she had either deleted all their conversations or they were communicating through phone calls only. Giving up without any evidence was not on the list, so I continued with my tracking plan. I was in a mix of anxious anticipation and hope that I would gather all the evidence I needed before jumping to conclusion. A moment later, Jessica came down, looking good and ready to go. She had told me that she was going to her friend's house because she had planned a small bachelorette for only her and a few ladies. I had to act like I didn't have any problem with that. I was anxious about the outcome of her plans, so I switched on the tracking app on my phone. I wanted to know if she was really going to her friend's house, of which indeed she was. She didn't stay long at her friend's house, which made me more suspicious of where she was going because there was no way the bachelorette would have lasted less than an hour. I continued monitoring her phone's location. My emotions got high as I was waiting for the confirmation of my suspicions. The tracking app showed me that she was going to a hotel not far from where our premarital party would take place. My curiosity told me that she was meeting up with him. Why would she disrespect our day like that? I called my sister and told her that I would meet up with them at the venue a bit later. I drove to the same hotel Jessica had gone to and went to the hotel's restaurant and sat where there was a clear view to see everything. So I ordered a drink to pass time, and 30 minutes later, I heard this guy talking to the reception lady. He introduced himself as Peter and was there for his girlfriend, Jessica Williams. The lady made a call before directing the guy to Jessica's room. I wasn't sure if he was talking about my Jessica, but there was only one Jessica Williams in the hotel. I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. My fiancé would never be friends or book a room with the man who looked old enough to be her father. She respected herself, or that's what I thought. Was this the same guy who she said was a friend from college and a project partner? Curiosity got the better of me. I had come up with a plan. I ordered a few beers. I was not going to do this sober, so I had to be at least tipsy. I didn't know if I would handle the truth when I uncover it, or maybe I should have just let things be. If you were in my situation, what would you do? I prayed to find nothing that would jeopardize our relationship and ruin the night that was supposed to be our wedding night. I had to find a way to get into that room. An hour later, I called my sister to come to the hotel not far from the venue where the premarital party was held. I had to use her to get at least a glimpse of what was going on in that room. I was scared that whatever we were to find there was going to change my sister's relationship with Jessica. A part of me wanted to just leave everything as it is and trust my soon-to-be wife, but I wanted to ease my consciousness and curiosity. My emotions were high and I didn't know how to control them. I wanted to get inside once and for all, but at the same time, my conscience was telling me to confront her about it after our wedding. A few moments later, my sister showed up and asked what I was doing at a hotel when I was supposed to be at the party. So I told her that I was waiting for Jessica. She was finishing up some filming projects, but she had been in the room for too long. I asked for her help to speak to the reception lady to let us in just to make sure she was still okay. As expected, my sister didn't believe my lie. We went to the reception lady. She introduced herself as Jessica's sister and introduced me as her fiancé. She asked the lady if we could get access into the room that she was in. The lady tried telling my sister that the person we were looking for was busy, so we pleaded with her until she gave in. My sister's questioning look made me uncomfortable, but I cared less. All I wanted was to get access into that room and see what was going on, then maybe I would have been at ease knowing the truth. The reception lady asked one of the hotel keepers to show us where Jessica was. My sister knocked on the door and we waited for someone to open at least, but no one did. We kept on knocking until my sister suspected that something might be wrong with Jess, so she asked the hotel keeper to open for us because there was no way someone was not going to hear the knocks. The hotel keeper then went to the reception lady and asked if the room number she gave us was the correct one, of which she confirmed that it was the room that Jessica was in. When the hotel keeper opened, I was the first one to get in. What I saw almost gave me a heart attack. I never thought I would ever witness my fiancé doing such things, especially to another man looking like a possessed demon. I didn't care about my sister's presence. Tears clouded my eyes. I couldn't believe what I had seen. It was heartbreaking to see my fiancé having such a sexual play with another man. It seemed as if I was looking at a hooker or a stripper. Seeing my woman taking charge of a sexual act with a man 2 times older than her. It was a very disgusting thing to watch. She looked pretty high. I couldn't recognize the person I was seeing. I asked myself who she was because that was not my fiancé. I walked out trying to digest what I saw. My sister came to me disappointed and shocked. She asked why I lied, and if what we saw inside the room was still a project I told her about. I didn't know what to tell my sister. My tongue was tied. I couldn't answer her, and the only thing that rang in my mind was fun and the grunts of that old man. My sister called the cops because the man was old and Jess was out of it. She was disappointed. She had accepted Jessica not only as my girl but as a little sister. On the other hand, I was more shuddered than angry. I thought it was all a dream and someone would wake me up and tell me that it was a nightmare. She was so innocent, or must I say she looked innocent, but she fooled me. It angered me. She had masked her troubles and resorted to drugs and old men. I thought we shared everything from our weaknesses to our strengths, including our sexual desires. She made me believe that she was going to her bachelorette party that was hosted by her friend, knowing very well that she wanted her friend to cover up for her so she can do her abominable act. To think that I was ready to start a family with Jessica. The following day was supposed to be about us, as we were going to be officially Mr. and Mrs. Washington. They say men don't cry, but I cried. I regretted getting into that room, but I was relieved that I had uncovered the truth. I found the truth about the meaning of fun the old man Peter was talking about. I couldn't leave her there alone while I saw how high she was on drugs. I didn't know that my fiancé was on drugs. Was I that ignorant to a point that I couldn't even see the changes in my fiancé's life? I blamed myself for the way she was. Maybe I was too pushy, so she resorted to drugs. She had started going out a lot, lying about her whereabouts. The red flags were there. All I wanted was for her to be open in our relationship. She should have told me what she was going through instead of taking drugs and sleeping with old men. My sister told me that we had to rush her to the hospital because she was having a seizure. 2 days after she got discharged, we tried talking about what went on. After weeks of trying to fix our relationship, I decided to call it quits. I couldn't trust her anymore. After Jessica, I never got into any relationship till today. I hated her but hated myself more. Did I make the right decision to give up on her? Any advice?